So what's burnout?
What's burnout? Oh wow, I did not expect this question. Burnout is when you're trying to do all the things and you think you're just a superhuman and you actually forget that you're human and you have all of these passions and all these ambitions in life and you're impatient and you want to get it all done, but it's super unrealistic. And then you end up not getting half of the things you want to accomplish done because you're not actually focusing and investing in your priorities. You're just spreading yourself really thin.
Burnout means to me feeling like there's so much to do, feeling a bit overwhelmed, not knowing where to start with the work, whether that's academics or personal stuff that needs to be done or like pill community organizing work. That's what burnout means to me.
So, burnout is to me when a student, it can be anyone, but particularly like here at Berkeley, like a student takes on more responsibility that they can handle to the point where it starts to affect them mentally, emotionally, physically, and they start to lose the motivation of why they're doing like anything, whether that be school or community or like work.
Yeah. I think thinking about burnout is like hard to think about too. Or not hard to think about, but kind of like hard to talk about because it's almost like emotional, right? When you experience burnout, you feel like part of yourself or your vision is dying.
Gotcha. Have you ever experienced burnout?
Yes. My sophomore year, when I was planning friendship games, I, for some reason, couldn't let go of like any of the responsibilities. Like even though I had a code, like anything that needed to be done, I felt like I needed to be part of it, and I needed to always be like the one that was responsible for it. So, and just even like other programs, I had a social coaching, to the point where and when programming is like technically designated under your name, for me, I have this like tendency for it to want it to be like the best or like legendary or something. I don't know my obsession with that. I've learned to let go of it now, but at the time that's what I wanted it to be, the best or well known or something like that. So because I was so focused on like that mission, school just went out the window sort of, and terrible in school that semester. Like work kind of wasn't a priority. It was just something like I went to. I would start doing things for my org during work. I started doing things for my org when I was supposed to be studying, and then like I was saying earlier, I just lost motivation and I started thinking, why did I take this position when like it's making me do like worse in school, like even like mentally I was just like drained, and I was like never felt like myself anymore because I was just always like stressed or worried or disappointed in myself, and I became very internally conflicted, and that was like the heaviest case of burnout that I've gotten.
I was doing things just to do things, like doing things just because it was part of my program, is what I had to do, and that a lot of what I needed to do was just step back and like, I don't know, read Kappa's mission statement again, to being able to sit down with myself and being like, what am I, like, why, I guess, what is my position, and like how am I, I guess like by position of like what are my actual goals, like for doing the things that I do. And I think that like actually has helped Kappa a lot in like this recent year of like, we cut a lot of programming out, which can seem bad or like kind of seem unfortunate, but I think that has helped us to be more present within our space, be more present with each other, like as a core, with Tim and I, and also kind of be present in like being able to be with different communities and being able to hone in on like how we can advocate for other communities too.
They call it sophomore slump for a reason. I would say that my sophomore year of college was a really, really dark period of time for me, especially when it came to burnout. I just felt really lost in college my sophomore year. I felt like I did not know what direction I wanted to go in. I had no idea if I even had the resources or the tools or the confidence anymore. And ironically, while all that was happening, I was involved in like 5 different things. And because of that, it was like I spread myself so thin that I didn't really invest. Like, I couldn't invest so much of myself in any of those things, even though I was super passionate about it. And because of that, it led me to really have, like becoming a recluse and just really wanting to pull away from the rest of society and the kinds of obligations and responsibilities I had. And it really pushed back on the potential success I could have achieved. And I think that, my whole sophomore year was just a year full of burnout.
As a second year within past staff, as an outreach coordinator, I felt this pressure to recreate what was done the previous year, but even better and even like with more improvements. But I saw that as more schools to outreach to, more students to outreach to, a bigger in volume outreach trip. But that doesn't necessarily, for me, like that was definitely a mistake. Just not thinking that I had to improve it like that, instead of thinking for myself, how can we improve, not necessarily by adding more schools, but maybe looking at what we have as is and kind of changing from there. I feel like I experience feelings of burnout almost every day, and what I mean by that is just feeling like there's so much to do and feeling stress, and that I don't think is something healthy. However, I think that what's important is validating that burnout, validating those feelings, and knowing that I have those feelings, and then figuring out what do I do next, or figuring out where are my supports for these, just so that way I can move forward with the most constructive use of my time.
So where do you think burnout stems from for you and also the Filipino community?
I would say burnout for me, I would say they're similar. I say burnout stems from the constant pressure of just like worrying about if you're doing enough to build a good future for yourself. And I think that stems a lot from my Filipino identity, because I have friends who come from, I mean, it is a socioeconomic thing as well, but I would say like my friends who come from white, middle income families do not have the sense of guilt and do not have the sense of burden for success and to give back to their families as my Filipino friends do. And that sense of guilt, that constant sense of guilt that you're not doing enough, and even when you are doing enough, is it the best for you? Is it actually reflecting the best form of success? I think that stems a lot from like Filipino culture and our communities, because our parents and our grandparents came from the Philippines. Some of us still have family members that are back there. And so I think a lot of our burnout stems from the feeling of like, man, I just want to make my parents proud of me. I just want to like prove that I can be a success and that I'm not a marginalized person and that I can dominate the floor as a Filipino woman or man or Filipino individual. And it's just like, I feel like a lot of burnout stems from, I'd say it stems from that.
It comes from losing vision. It comes from not knowing why you are doing the things that you do. I think if there's anything else that burnout comes from, I feel like it also comes from, I guess, unrealistic expectations of yourself and your capacity to do what you have to do, or feeling like the things that you did that were coming from, I don't know, I guess coming from your heart, are now coming from a place of obligation. Yeah, feeling like in some ways that this is like your overall duty to, like, I don't know, go forward with this event, or that like there's this expectation that either you or community members, like, subconsciously or consciously have placed on you, that make you feel like if you don't do this, then somehow your role in this community is now invaluable or undervalued, or feeling like you have to be part of these programs in order to be valued or be seen.
For me, I think burnout stems from not reaching out for help, and then thinking that you are the sole person responsible for, whether it be like this event going on, or even like you just thinking that too many things fall on you. And that comes down to school too. Like, I felt like I have to be the one to do well in school because no one else is going to college. Like, that I think also contributed to my burnout, because it contributed to this internal conflict of I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm going to continue to do it that way. And for the PIL community in general, I think burnout also comes from, like, these things have to fall on us. Like, as the PIL community, we have to provide these programs for these incoming students so that they'll feel welcome. We have to provide this because that's the way we've always done. That's why this year, when there was no friendship games, it was hard for everyone to let go of, because it's on us to provide friendship games for everyone. And I know me having had that position before, it was sort of like, did I do something like wrong? Because that's the way it's supposed to have always run, and because it didn't run, like, we're doing something wrong, and that's where burnout stems from. I feel like if you don't do it, then you're doing it wrong.
Tangible action items. Wow. Wonder who formulated these questions, but anyways, tangible action items. This is always an important question, because we can talk about things, but what will we do about it? So good job to whoever made the questions. Off the top of my head, I would say, interesting. I was just gonna say, like, talk about it, like, talk it out, which is interesting because it's more talk. But I feel like in the PIL community, there's a lot of talk, but not necessarily about things like burnout, or how we feel about the burnout, or where we feel like it's coming from. First, I think what needs to be understood is the source of the issues of burnout, and source of just, like, conflict within the PIL community, whether that's, like, exclusivity, because, like, for myself, not knowing a Philippine language and being able to speak it, or not looking a certain way of being Filipino. But I do think that tangible action items would be to have some type of, like, I don't know if the right word would be caucus or talking space, or maybe breakout groups, whether that's generational identities. So for those who immigrated from the Philippines to here, like, kind of talk to each other about what that experience looks like for them. And then those Filipinos who are born here can talk about that experience. And then second generation as well. Just so that way we can more connect with each other personally, and I think that would help. Personally, I think that would help with feeling connected to one another, because what I've heard from, for example, the execs, is that it doesn't feel like as much of a community. Other tangible action items, not doing programming just for the sake of it. I mean, that's off the top of my head, and that's something that I think me, Jensen, and Bradley are working on with folks in the exec space and folks in the community. Good question. I would have to get back to you if you all want more thought out answers, but that's off the top of my head.
There's been a lot of talk of overprogramming and oversaturation with events. And, like, I understand why a lot of these different events are important, and, like, why people want to try new things in order to get more turnout and to get more people. I think if we're able to somehow strip down our events to, like, what is our actual vision, for putting on these programs and being able to collaborate with other orgs, other communities, and being able to reach this core vision. I think that would be able to get to a better understanding of why we do what we do, and I think be given life in the events that we do rather than experiencing burnout. And I think that preventing burnout looks like maintaining a vision for like why you are in these spaces, why you do the work that you do, being able to be affirmed by your community that the work that you're doing is very important. And that because you have that vision and are holding that space for that vision, that actually ripples into different spaces and ripples into, I think, life being given to like students on campus.
Some ways you can address these issues. I mean, definitely having more mental health talks. I think discussing how we still live in a colonized mindset as people, and that we need to decolonize our minds, as progressives say. But literally, we need to decolonize our food that we're eating. We need to decolonize our concept of what it means to be Filipino, because a lot of that has been fed by Western media in a lot of ways, and how we actually view ourselves, and what it means to have the American dream, and redefining what that means in a Filipino context, especially for our generation, not just through what our parents say. And that we need to address and like reduce the stigma of getting help for mental health and for burnout. And that if we're really trying to provide resources as a Filipino community to this marginalized population, mental health should be one of those main resources. Like, it's so much more than providing academic like advice and things like that. Because again, if you're just focusing on academic advice and resources, what you're actually providing our community, you're still feeding into that system. And almost what our parents would say, like, you know, like, I have friends who are Filipino who have gone through mental health issues, and their parents, when they try to talk to them about it, they're like, oh, you just need to study harder. You just need to time manage better. You need to get help from your professors and your academic advisors. And that is exactly where the issue is. It's like our happiness, although sadly in a lot of ways is attached to our ability to have a good academic and career standing. And it's like if we constantly keep tying it to that, and our conversations as a community on campus keep tying it to that conversation and feeding back into the narratives that our parents have taught us, along with other very strong and important values, but also just the fact that like if we're not giving back through that professional status or that educational achievement and attainment, like you know, if we don't deconstruct that, then we're gonna be teaching that to our kids, you know, and our identity is gonna get even more lost in the weeds of that, because it's all connected, it's all holistic. And it's like if we're not addressing mental health, then we're also not addressing ourselves, and we're not actually talking about what it means to be Filipino. Because when we talk about mental health, we're actually talking about what it means to be a Filipino person with mental health issues, you know? Because if we strongly identify with, if our whole purpose of even having these services and these different organizations is to form an identity for ourselves, then like why can't we have a Filipino identity that is also prioritizing mental health? Like, I don't see why the two have to be separate, or even why it's viewed as a privilege, you know? Like, it's unfortunate that it's a privilege to access mental health services in general in this country, but we're the communities that are being affected the worst and are going to face the worst long-term outcomes of those problems.
With my words today, I want to highlight our community's resilience. Resilience is about getting back up after falling, and I've seen us do just that. Our community shares difficulty with burnout and cultural identity and struggles as students of color in higher education, student workers, family members, and as human beings. But if I learned something from being a part of PCN, is that we have each other's backs for late night practices, sewing cloth into umbrellas, and support. It's not about how many times we get clapped by the tickling sticks or how many times we fall, but it's about how many times we keep dancing. It's about how many times we rise.